Welcome to stage 4 of the stage brief. On tonight's course of fire, we have lawsuit updates and the board meeting coming up on Monday. We've got a couple of classification changes that are on the agenda. We'll talk about the matches that we shot this weekend and some lessons learned. And then we're going to talk a little bit about personality in shooting and how those two are linked. I'm your host, Josh Morgan, and I've got Tom Bick with me here tonight. Tom, go ahead and introduce yourself for anybody who hasn't met you yet.
Hello, I'm Tom. No GMs here tonight. You'll just get the lowly A's and M's.
We'll do the best we can. The good news is classification doesn't really matter if USPSA gets dissolved in this lawsuit here. So John Burt filed the lawsuit. Gosh, it's got to be at least 2 weeks ago now. And since then, he was removed from his position as the Area 2 director in a 6-1 vote with Area 4 siding with John. The other 6 area directors voted to remove him. The wording of the release was pretty convoluted. There was a lot of weird verbiage that didn't make a ton of sense, but based on all sources that I've seen, John is off of the board of directors and is no longer a member of USPSA. So they booted him from the board and banned him from the organization. The lawsuit is still active. He has some sort of deadline. I don't remember exactly when it was to continue the lawsuit, I guess. And so if USPSA doesn't comply with what he's looking for, then the lawsuit will continue. Tom, I know you watched the video. Did you have any thoughts from that?
Yeah, so I watched the interview that he did with Ben Stager and Alex Acosta. I've also heard other interviews with him, including on the Casual Shooter podcast. I think that's correct. Or maybe it was PSTG or something like that. But I think like it's sort of weird when you start getting into USPSA and you start following this stuff, if you follow it, because one, he's like, he got kicked off the board. You're like, okay. And then he got his membership revoked or whatever. Yeah. And you're like, oh, that's kind of harsh. But then you're like, no, he filed a lawsuit against the organization. Like, that kind of makes sense. That's sort of logical in my opinion. But then like there's always like, I don't know the guy. So like, in the interview, he sounds credible. And he sounds genuine and sincere. And I'm not saying he's not. But then you don't hear the other side, and it's like the same thing. Like, I feel like that's been happening as long as I've been following it, which is just like a year and a half, where it's just like you don't know what's going on. Like, and you don't know, like, is that they can't talk about it or they just don't talk about it. But like, it sounds really simple. Like, he wanted some information. They were, then his attempts were blocked to get the information. And then you're not really sure like why they were blocked. And then you're like, well, is there a good reason that we can't know about? But it's just like, I don't really get it. I really don't get it. Because for all I know, I'm just saying like maybe the board, if somebody's filing a lawsuit against you, like I would get him off the board and definitely revoke the membership. Like that should be the consequence. However, the lawsuit doesn't seem that egregious, but then you don't know what's behind the scenes. I think that's the hard part for me is like, there's no communication necessarily, or like you said, like it's not clear or it's minimal and maybe that's how it's supposed to be. I don't really know, but it just like leads to just confusion. And then you're just like, you don't really know what to believe. And I don't really understand why it's like that at the end of the day. I guess because we're human and we're complicated. I don't really know.
Ah, yes, human nature played out on the USPSA board.
Well, you think about it, right? We're like at the end of the day, like what is the USPSA? It's just to facilitate clubs, put on the sport, but then there's all this other crap, and you're just like, why?
Yeah, there are former area directors who have said there's nothing horrible in those files.
Right.
So like I don't, and I guess from my understanding with Ben Barry's publication and listening to John Bird is like it's one lawyer's opinion that there's like a difference of opinion on. But like who cares if the organization doesn't exist? Like this is if USPSA goes down for this, like USPSA will have been wrong for not releasing these files based on my understanding, but also John Burt will have killed the organization. So it's like nobody wins here. Everybody is wrong and the organization ceases to exist. And the only people that are left holding the bag are the members who have paid money into this, and the clubs who now have to make a decision whether they want to run IPSC or go Wildcat or whatever.
Right.
But the classification system is gone. The decades of data we have on practical shooting and the history behind it in the U.S. gone. All because USPSA can't release files and John Burt decided a lawsuit was the best way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, and I'm a lifetime member, thinking that I'd be doing this for a while, obviously, and I don't want it to go. At the same time, I don't think that a judge in court, this is like in court, right? Like this is like pretty serious. I don't think that a judge is just going to be like not take it seriously, and I don't think lawyers are not going to take it seriously. So I don't know that at the end of the day, like that's what the outcome is. There, like, I'm not a lawyer, but there's a lot of different outcomes where they could just like, you have to release the files, or moving forward, can you agree to be more transparent this way? Blah 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 blah. Obviously, one of the outcomes is that USPSA doesn't exist anymore, but I don't know. And then let's say it doesn't. I think somebody picks it up. I think it's just called something else. I mean, yeah, it might be reset to zero, or maybe it's a little bit different. But um, I mean, there's and then you hear stuff about like how they're how the tax filings are, they're not renewing their stuff, and it's not like so. I don't know. Or maybe it's just because we're shooters, and then we're not business people, or some of us are, but. Maybe that's what it is. Like if you put me on the board, I'm not a business person. Like I wouldn't necessarily know how to run it, how to run it. Um, so maybe that's part of it. But again, like these are all volunteer people that are giving up their time. So I mean, I can see it from both sides. But you really think that this would be like the end of USPSA? Like I know that that's what the lawsuit says, but
Yeah, I mean, from my understanding with the lawsuit, the only thing the judge has to decide on is if USPSA is in compliance with the law. And if USPSA is not in compliance with the law, it dissolves the organization and all of its assets go to the state.
hmm
And I think if the state of Washington gets a hold of USPSA and it's $4 million in assets, like that they're not gonna put somebody in charge of it. They're not gonna mediate this. They're gonna scrap the whole organization, and the Attorney General for Washington is gonna put this as a massive anti-gun win.
yeah, that's possible. I'm not going to say that's not possible. That's possible. If that's as simple as it is, and then USPSA is not following the law, and it's as simple as that, then yeah, then I guess what your scenario seems uh like very possible. Um, I think in the interview, his argument was like, well, if they're if the organization is not following the law, should there be an organization? And I was like, well, that's kind of I mean, if you're not, it's not just about the files, right? Like if you're finding things like they're, taxes aren't filed correctly, or the business itself, I forget what it is, the nonprofit,
The
uh,
charitable donations issue.
yeah, all that, and then you're like, okay, well, when is it transparent? Can you, if I say I want to, where is the money going? Can you see all that? And if that's supposed to be available and it's not, then okay, like I mean, a nonprofit is supposed to be like pretty transparent. I mean, I've worked for nonprofits, and people could look up my salary. I mean, I didn't think that it was kind of annoying, but I mean, that's just how it is. You're working, like where's this dollar going? It just went right there, like that's where it went. And so, you know, if they're not doing that and they're supposed to do that, then yeah, I mean, but maybe there's an option where it's like, all right, we got to figure out something. We got to figure out something here where we're making sure we're within the bounds. But yeah, I mean that would be sad, obviously, if the USPSA went down. I mean, I really hope that that doesn't happen, and nobody wants to stop shooting. So I do feel like something will replace it. Um, Again, it might just be called something else. I don't know. I mean, there's IPSC, right? Like you can't just not have USPSA, or you can't have nothing.
Yeah, I mean there would have to be a new governing body for IPSC within the U.S. So
Yeah.
we're going to trademark US IPSC the second USPSA gets dissolved.
Well, you should do it now,
Yeah. Um,
not after.
but there is a board meeting tomorrow night at 4 o'clock. I don't know which time zone it is because the time zone was not in the agenda,
Good.
but it's it's at 4 o'clock. And so the agenda's got quite a few things. It's got the
I'm assuming
bylaws.
West Coast, right? Like 7 p.m.
You got me beat.
I
Maybe.
mean, I would think.
I don't. If they didn't put the time zone on the
Yeah.
agenda,
Okay. Yeah,
I
that's
figure it's
true.
for the ADs to figure out. But they've got a lot of stuff to talk about, obviously.
Hmm.
But one of the things that Area 4 motioned to do was to remove the G flag, in addition to the other flags that are being removed under the new classification system taking effect in April.
All right.
So,
Start from the beginning. So what is that? What do you mean?
yeah,
All the
so
flags.
USPSA has a classification committee whose charter was to revamp and make accurate the classification system to the best of their ability, so that performance in matches is better reflected by classification. And so they went out and they did that and they created these proposals. They presented the proposals to the board. The board approved them in some form or fashion. And the new system that will take effect essentially is, your best six of your last eight classifiers. The average of those best six will determine your classification percent. Once you reach a certain threshold to get B class, C class, A class, the class stays, but the percentage fluctuates. And so, um, in the initial proposal that was approved by the board, G flags, which are 0 to 2%, stayed in the system. So if you had a 0% classifier, it would not count that, as one of your most recent eight. So if you shot nine classifiers and one was a 0, it wouldn't count that. It would take the other
So
eight.
you said it stays in the system, so it doesn't stay in the system.
So it would fall off. It wouldn't count as one of
Right.
your
Okay.
most recent eight.
All right.
Um, there is a proposal on the board for tomorrow's meeting that the G flag will count towards your most recent eight. So if you have a bad classifier, you shoot a 0, or potentially, theoretically, not entirely sure how this is going to work out yet. If you shoot a classifier match and you DQ, and all of those classifiers are entered as zeros, potentially that means you have a 0%. I'm not sure. The DQ one is kind of up in the air,
Interesting. Yeah.
but
Didn't think of that.
bad classifiers will now count, period, if the Area 4 proposal goes through.
But you're not just talking about the You're okay. So how it would be in this new system is you shoot eight classifiers. It's still the best. Is it the average of all eight or the average of the best six?
The average of the best six.
So it's still the average of the best six. So you get two that drop or that are not counted towards the average
In your most recent eight, yep.
in your most recent eight. And then now the difference is that even if you're if you're M class, anything below 80% does not count. Now, but with this new system, anything below 80%, it doesn't matter. Everything would count, including 0 to 2, which I think it sounds like 0 to 2 sounds funny, but I think it makes a lot of sense because 2%, like if you get 2%, like, okay, whatever. But 0 is intentional. I mean, you could zero a classifier, if you're trying really, whatever. But
You forget
zero
to
is usually,
reload.
yeah, or you're new, or I mean, some of them you hit two no shoots, it's over. Like, um, But the zero is like, yeah, if you're trying to like throw a score, you're gonna zero it. So I mean, I agree with that. I think the classification, and this is from somebody who fought really hard and worked hard to make A class, and like I am below A class, So, but I do. I mean, I like that they're looking at it. They would also bring down the hit factor, so it would make it not a lot easier, somewhat easier. Um, to make your class. But I mean, I like the idea that your class reflects your skill and that you have to be consistent. Um, you're consistent. Like, I think that that's important. And to just intentionally zero a stage is, I mean, it's part of the game now, but it's not a part of the game that I enjoy.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. Um,
And the DQ is interesting. I think the DQ means those count. Because if they don't do that, then people are just going to DQ a bad classifier match.
yeah. Um, I'm not really sure exactly how this will play out. From the agenda that I read, it sounded like the hit factors would get roughly 10% easier. Again, this is rough numbers here based on what I read. I could be misinterpreting this. The agenda is posted at uspsa.org if you're interested in reviewing it and you are a member. So feel free to read through that and come to your own conclusions. But if the hit factors are 10% easier, it won't be as impossible as it is now.
It'll still be
If
hard.
Oh, it'll definitely be
Yeah,
hard.
it'll still be hard. It should. I mean, it's not. It shouldn't be easy to make GM. I also think, and this I know that will not happen, but I also think like if they're gonna change it, they should like we start like everybody starts at zero, which is like again I know what I'm saying. Like this is like kind of not, but it's gonna be a little bit weird to have like an old system and a new system. Or my alternative, and I know I've talked to you about this before, is like um I guess each year, I don't know, I guess you could do calendar year just to make it easier. You drop a class and then you have to reclassify like or in this new system, like everybody drops a class. So if you're a GM, you go down to M. And if you're a GM like and you're a legit GM, like it's not a big deal. You just make GM again. And I don't even know if GMs that are competitive like really even care, but they're just like they want to win majors and nationals. So I don't know that I don't know if I mean I'm not GM. I don't know if like that means anything to them. But if you're through GM, you'll make GM again. If you're M class shooter, you'll make M class again from A class.
Theoretically.
Well, yeah, but that's what you are. You're an M class shooter right now. You're an A class shooter right now. You're a C class shooter right now. Um, I don't know. That's I don't know that that's the idea, but that's an idea.
Yeah,
And it
I
would
get
get
what
rid
you're
of a
saying.
lot of the GMs that are maybe people who don't shoot anymore, or people who don't have the same level of skill. You know.
So, like, if I shot poorly for 2 years, I'd be in B class.
I mean that's a yeah,
I'm just thinking,
yes,
like, if I was to game this, right? And again, this
right.
isn't my goal, but there are some people out there who hunt classification trophies. Like, I just bomb every classifier for the next 2 years. I'm in B class for 2027,
Yeah.
and I clean up
Yeah, but what do you clean up?
all of the B class trophies. They're mine now.
Yeah. I mean, I guess.
I mean, that's the counter to that.
Maybe no, I mean that could be you could do that like if you're going to win I don't know, I guess. If you're going to win a trophy, and you're like they look at your history and you were M class 2 years ago, you can't win B class. Like you have to be B class for 5 years or something like that if you were previously an A or M class or you know what I mean?
Or you just
I
have
don't
to
know.
compete in your highest class, which is what we
Yeah,
have, which is what we have right now anyway.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, so I mean something like that. But I mean again, like it's maybe people wouldn't like that, but also, yeah, you don't shoot for 3 years. You start back at D and you make your way up. I don't know. There's like part of the fun that I have in the sport is moving up moving up classes. I mean, it's already getting a lot harder now. But yeah, sure, go to C, B. I mean, if I go back down to U, I mean, I should at least make B, if not A again, you know? Like not that it shouldn't be that difficult. I don't know. I mean, I blew the classifier today, but the last three were all the three previous before that were A class classifiers. The one before that I think was a high B class. So I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I mean it'll be interesting. I think there will be an increased demand for classifier matches. Like we have access to a club and direct access to a match director, which is kind of unique. But like if if there was someone making a push, right, it's way easier to string six classifiers in a day together than it is to string six classifiers over a month together.
Right.
Um, so if you
Right.
think about it, every eight stage classifier match is a fresh start. And
Yeah.
all you need to do is hook up on one day for six stages. And if you have access to the match director and you can cherry pick which classifiers you shoot, like,
Sure, but that's fine. I mean, it's not fine, but it's fine. Like that happens. I'm sure that happens now.
but it doesn't
That,
improve the
but
legitimacy of the classification
well,
system.
no, that's not true because you'll be like, okay, your class will be M, okay, and then you're gonna keep shooting. Or I mean, you can always say like you joke around, you retire, like okay, fine, like great, then you're not shooting anyway. But if you keep shooting and you're not an M class, your percentage is gonna show what you really are.
I mean, maybe,
I
maybe
know
not.
people in matches don't look at that, but if you're like competitive, if you're nationally competitive or state, I don't know, like I don't know that that really matters anymore. This is just for like,
I mean, under the new system, I'm a 60% shooter. Like, if we were to go back and look at my most recent eight flat out.
yeah, I don't know what I am. I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm assuming today was probably a zero because I had a mic.
So it'll be like a 60% master. And it's like, is that really reflective? Probably not.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, but then maybe you put one more, you like create one more class or something like that.
I
I
don't
don't know.
know.
Yeah, that's
And
kind of hard.
I'm not quite sure. But
But yeah.
speaking of classifications mirroring match results, you and I shot a match together today
Oh
at the
God.
Aналani Rod and Gun Club.
Yeah, it's a great match.
Um,
Always.
10 stages, 10 stages in one day for a level one match, which was awesome. That
Yep.
was my first time actually getting to shoot there for a club match. I had only shot their majors before, so that was
Yeah,
kind
dude,
of fun.
it's yeah, it's really good.
And Tom, you completed the match, which is good.
Probably one of my worst
You didn't
recently.
DQ.
I've never DQ'd. I
Knock
don't
on
know.
wood. Knock on wood right now. Let me go pull up the scores. I had it and I lost it.
Um, I mean, it's kind of funny now just looking back because I finished in uh at 62.5% carry optics. I think it's 56 over whatever somewhere. So, but like, when I first started, I would that those kind of scores be like, holy shit, this is fucking awesome. I also finished with that score with 12 mics. Let me see if I had the most mics out of the whole match. I had
It would have been close.
oh shit, no, somebody had 26 mics.
Oh god.
Second most mics. Oh shit. That's rough.
No, there's someone with 14. You're good. You're good. Oh, there's a lot down there. 53, 26,
Oh, I'm looking at
16.
just carry optics. Oops. Yeah, never mind. Anyway, it was a lot of mics. It's probably the most mics I've ever shot in a match. Maybe like even like two matches combined. That's more than one mic per stage. Um, but what's interesting now is that like except for like I mean there was one stage where I had a malfunction. I lost 3 seconds. So if I take that away, the 3 seconds away, like my times are pretty good. Not on. I think there's like 7 out of 8 times are competitive, and then two or three that are just not competitive still. I don't mean like same as Sam Callahan who won Carry Optics or Hempel, but like 2 seconds off, 3 seconds off, which for me is like a lot. Was a like pretty good improvement. And besides the mics, it's not like I had a ton of terrible hits. But yeah, it was very frustrating. So it was, yeah, I mean, I'm a classic like I think B class like over confirmer. Like I've shot matches where I mean I've had very little Charlies and mostly alphas, but not fast. And so and to make it to A class, I had to break that habit and take more risk. And now it's like, all right, I got to do that more for M class. But now what's happening is a new problem, which is cool. So I'm not over confirming, I'm under confirming. So I watched some of I didn't have that much time, but I watched one of the videos and where you said like you could like see it. So there's one where you like you can't really see, but there's one really obvious where I am uh literally yeah, it's an open target and the shot goes, it hits the target, whatever, it's fine. And then I turn my head and then shoot my second shot. Like it's so obvious.
Yeah,
It's
like
really bad.
your head is 45 degrees pointed
Yes.
away from the target
Yeah.
when your gun goes off.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you did that a couple of times today.
No, well, a bunch of times. And I think what I found out is I did a lot more than 12 times is that the only issue was that if the targets were close, that's where my deltas and charlies were. Not all of them, but um so if the target's close, I don't get a mic because the target's close. But you put it a little bit of distance, and we're not talking about that much. What was it, like 10 yards, maybe? But 10 yards it out, it starts getting to be like delta and mics.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I definitely need some help with. I mean, I know you said I can't really work at it in dry fire that much, so it has to be live fire. I definitely need a drill, and I mean, I have to shoot like down a bet, down a single lane. So I need to figure out a drill for that because what we figured out, and I'm glad you saw it because I couldn't understand why I was getting so many mics, and I just figured, oh, I'm going faster, my eyes aren't catching up, but it's literally I see the dot, I pull the trigger, the shot goes, the dot comes back down, and I'm like, I don't need to look anymore. The dot's already there. Like I don't need to look anymore. And as I press the trigger, I'm turning my head to the next target, and it's just enough, it's just enough on any sort of distance where it's just like shot's gone. And I was like, I'm glad I mean, it was frustrating today, but I'm glad I figured it out because I thought for the last 3 months it was recoil control. And like I changed my grips, I changed my not like my actual lock grips, I changed my actual grip. I changed my pressure. I was like clamping on the gun. I'm like, why am I having trouble with recoil control? And now I realize that it's not that. I'm not missing high. I'm missing to the left or to the right, which is actually nice. So, I mean, I'm glad that that happened. I wish it didn't happen at this kind of match, but whatever. At
Yeah,
least, at least it's not Mid Atlantic.
yeah. Yeah, we want to get that straightened out before we show up at a major here.
I fucking hope so. This is bad.
But like and again, this we talked about it on the range as it was happening, but I this might be a byproduct of dry fire. And I'm a
Right.
big dry fire guy. I'm a big proponent of dry firing. I'm not saying people shouldn't dry fire. That's not what I'm getting at. But in dry fire, when you decide you're going to transition the gun, it's based on the sight pictures that you got,
Right.
right? And so if you train that to maximize the or minimize the time, right? Maximize your efficiency.
Hmm.
Your eyes are ripping off the target as soon as
Right.
you get that second mental shot.
Yep.
And so if you if you do that in live fire
I mean, I've been
and
pushing down the times on my dry fires, and it's yeah.
yeah,
So I've been just taking sight pictures now. I've taken the trigger pull out of it. Do I put the trigger pull back into dry fire? Does that help?
I mean maybe like actually you know what would be really interesting like if you have an array, right, and you have a par time
Well, yeah, I have it behind me right now.
um and like you go hammer back, right?
Yep.
And then you pull the trigger deliberately on the second shot before you do a wide transition. That way the hammer falling is your indicator. And
Yeah.
maybe that's not the right, like the hammer falling wouldn't be the indicator, but that's your
No, but the click,
reference.
like the click. I mean, it is the hammer falling.
Yes.
You're not waiting for the click. Yeah, that's probably what I gotta set up. Yeah, I just gotta do a wide transition and just do that a bunch of times in dry fire, and then I guess that's the same thing in live fire. Just put like two boxes on the
Yeah.
target.
Because it's only on those wide transitions, and like it's not a shooting problem. Like you're hitting your alphas when your eyes are there. Um,
Yeah,
but for it to be entirely visual like that, I think it's fascinating. Like I know this is a very frustrating problem for you to work
it's
through, but
fascinating.
it is fascinating to see someone who is off the target and into the next position visually before their gun goes off. Like that is not a problem that most people have.
Yeah, I know. I told you Rob Epifania like told me like he gave me this drone. He's like, you cannot like you won't be able to do this. Like you want to try to do this to increase your transition time. So now I'm doing it. I'm doing the thing you said you couldn't do. Like like oh no, I'll find a way to miss. Yeah, like it's I just picked a random stage 2, 14 alphas, one Charlie, one Delta, two Mike. You know, so it's not. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, there's
And they weren't mics in hardcover. They just simply weren't on the target.
no, they were, yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Yeah, they're not even on the target. It's so crazy. Yeah, I mean, 20, oh no, that's not me. 23 alphas, 8 Charlies, one mic. Like, I think there was two stages I didn't have a mic. 16 alphas, 4 that was one of them, 16 and 4. Yeah. Yep.
Now
What about you?
you weren't
Uh,
the only
uh,
one with mystery mics today.
yeah, well, that's the thing. Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. So well, I don't think you had this issue, or you started off the day with the first two stages. On the second stage of the day, you missed your first shot. I forget you had a mic on the
I had a mic on the first
first,
stage.
right, but I forget where it was.
It was on a no shoot partial. I had two good shots that I was feeling good about. Um, I don't. I have no idea where that second shot went. Like replaying it in my mind afterwards, like trying to like, did I feel weird? Did I do something? And I don't know. Now I didn't spend a lot of time looking at it. I didn't call for an overlay on it. It looked
Oh Jesus!
pretty clearly as one hit, so I don't think it was worth spending any more time on it. But
Yeah, come on.
um, I mean, like it looked like one
You had
hit.
three mics though. After the first two stages, I guess you had one more. So it felt
I think I mic'd out on the first three stages, right?
oh
Or did I
okay.
miss somewhere else? So I think
I
it
didn't.
was stage three. I was like, yeah, there it is, three in a row.
So we started 3, 4, 5. Yeah, you
Yeah, three,
did.
four, five, and then we don't see it again for the rest of the match.
Yeah, and you had one delta the entire match.
Um,
I mean, you're at the
so
iron sight. Yeah, I mean, you said at one point like the second stage was real sunny and your fiber optic.
yeah, the fiber was real bright. Shoot,
But
training
turn that
indoors,
down. Can you turn that down? Is it
you
possible?
can Sharpie it. You can Sharpie where the light
Oh,
impacts between the two anchor
really?
points.
Okay.
I'm not doing that, but you can do that. And the second stage, it was three targets, probably 12 yards, nothing crazy. And then a
Yeah, open.
tuxedo,
Yep.
3 yards in front of you on the ground.
Yeah.
And I
I
put
don't even know if it was 3 yards.
it was
No, it
it
was
was
definitely no. It was like 1 foot.
no, it was far enough to miss. Like there were no powder burns, no swirls on the target.
All
People did
right.
it,
Okay.
but I put seven alpha in that array, and my first shot on a wide open target. We think it was my first. We don't really know. My first or second shot on that array disappeared. No idea. And then I went on to shoot the rest of that stage in a division win by like a lot, but in an overall, I'm not
Well,
entirely sure how it went.
you're one of two shooters.
Okay,
Uh, you
let's not get
you
picky
went
here.
against a U class.
Yeah, hey,
That stands for unranked.
hey, a win's a win.
Yeah.
But I shot that in a pretty competitive time.
Oh wait, no, I'm sorry.
1480 was on stage four was um, up at the top of the pack. So if I had hooked up there, that could have been big. But I didn't, and that's okay. It's a learning experience for sure. So
Hmm.
definitely something to be
I,
learned from.
I think no, overall you did pretty well, I thought.
Yeah, so I was what 37th in the overall, and then I was second if you
Yeah, that's
combine
right.
production and limited.
Well, you're
At,
78% of the winner the PCC person
yeah, it's not even a
shooter.
real division, but
Oh
um,
God.
yeah, if you combine the iron sided divisions today, I was second behind a limited G at like 90 something percent. I don't know.
All right, whatever you
Um,
say. I mean, the other thing that was weird, and I'm trying to figure out why it happened. I think it's just the cold. I mean, I've shot in the cold before, but this is the first outdoor match since last October, and it wasn't that cold in October. I don't think I've shot a real cold match since we shot last year in February when we shot at Bridgeville the Galactic Pistol match
mhm.
where it was like February and it was cold. And because the second stage I went to make ready and I don't like speed draw my make ready and I look down and I don't know where my dot is and then I'm like it must be off. But no it's not, it's on and my index is off. My whole index was off and I tried to get it back in the make ready and it did not. I mean, I got it, but then in the stage, that was the stage where there was the swinger and I lost a lot of time because I went on two passes where if I had my dot, I would have hit it pretty easily in the first pass because because we went over the timing and everything. And I hit like two deltas and open targets that were like I don't know, 2 yards, 3 yards away. Maybe I'm like exaggerating, but like pretty close. Because I've never had a stage where my index was off. And I think it was just, I mean, it didn't happen after that and it got warmer. So I think it was, and I got my hands warmer. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's never happened to me before where just like the whole thing is off. And I'm just like, I'm doing that, what is it, spray and pray kind of thing. And,
Yeah,
it doesn't work.
that was very uncharacteristic of you. There was a lot of mics out there on stuff that you were standing still on.
Yeah. Well, what stage was that? Four?
That was four with the
Yeah, I
swinger,
had three mics and two deltas, and then
and your
seven
two
short.
deltas were on a target that was maybe 3 yards away.
Yeah, exactly. It was very weird. It was the most uncomfortable feeling I've ever had. Besides shooting in the rain where with pro grip that's just like slipping all over the place. Um, yeah.
But you didn't have that problem on stage three, right?
No, I didn't. It didn't. It stopped. So it was. I think it was legitimately just a cold.
Well, the stage before that was still cold, and you didn't have that, right? Or did you have that
Oh
problem
no,
on three?
on the first stage, no. I my hits were not that great. I think I got very lucky. I got very lucky with I got I think it was an alpha, but it was right in the line of the black, and my hits were not great. And I didn't get any mics, but those all those targets were super close as well. I saw my dot a little bit better, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, we had just like warmed up, so.
Yeah, who would mic on that stage? That's crazy.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
uh,
What about I have a baby now, so I can't do two matches in one weekend, so I have to pick the one that's closer. But I do miss the ESPS Eastern Shore Practical Shooters, right? That's what it's called.
yeah, so I
And
shot that on Saturday.
yeah, and you did very well. You beat Larry Coons, number 34, aka the Talent, best dressed shooter in the area, maybe even the nation.
It's possible. I don't think I've seen a drippier shooter, and I've traveled a good
Trapper
bit.
shooter, dude.
The
It's He's
The
good.
man's
That's
got
good.
swag. You got to give it
Very.
to him.
Definitely does.
But I got to shoot with Larry for two whole weekend days in a row. It was crazy. Um, and so um, yeah, I shot Eastern Shore. Came out real well. So third overall with a production gun, 86% of Matt Hempel. Um, this match and yesterday was really, really big for me because I'm typically a couple of seconds off pace from GM times on every stage. And so that's a pretty demoralizing feeling knowing that like on your best run you're 2 seconds off. And so these past two matches were the first time I have ever connected with GM times, and yesterday hooked up with GM points on a couple of those stages. And so I'm really excited um, to see that in myself, to see what I'm practicing, to see the shot calling and the efficiency and how I shoot from a mental perspective paying off in big point and time gains. So that was really cool for me to see. Eastern Shore was really awesome. That match was also pretty production friendly. Today's match, I would say, was probably less so.
Yes, for sure.
Um,
Yeah, that's hard when you have no like, because your times are going to be off. I guess what do? You add a second to each stage for that extra reload,
yeah, but like
sort of like second
it's almost
two.
impossible to weigh it. Eastern Shore wasn't too bad. I think there was maybe one stage where I had to do a weird extra load, but everything else was pretty straight up. Um, but
They love for
that
the production shooters there, or are you still the only one?
no, there were three.
Oh, there was three. All right, good.
Um, so yeah, no, it was really cool to see that in myself to be able to perform at that level in a squad I didn't really know that well. Uh, So I wasn't
Does that make a
super,
difference?
yeah, like I wasn't really relaxed. Like I
You're not
was,
relaxed if you don't know the people?
yeah, like I was shooting with
Interesting. Okay.
Byron. Byron's a good guy. Down in Salisbury, I get to shoot with him a couple of times a year, so it was cool. But yeah, if I'm on a squad with a bunch of randos, like no offense if you're one of these randos, but like if I don't know you, it, like it's a less comfortable experience, right? Like if I roll up and I know the squad and we're all boys, then I'm going to shoot more relaxed. Whereas if I'm shooting with a bunch of people I've never met before, and in the case of Eastern Shore, a bunch of people who were unclassified. So there was a bunch of people who were asking me for things,
You wanted to get into this. Yeah, go ahead.
and
Most
again, this isn't
shooters.
a negative thing. Like absolutely ask experienced shooters in your group all the time. Like there's nothing wrong with that. But people were, I don't know what's the word. This is going to sound super arrogant and I apologize for it, but like I walked up and people were talking about me being on the squad and they were like, "Hey, we get to shoot with Josh today." And it's like
Yo, that's cool.
it is very cool. It's very cool.
It
Not
does. It
not
must feel
great for
weird.
my
Yeah.
ego, but it is a weird feeling to be like, "Oh, these people are going to be like watching me from a
Good.
critique perspective."
Good. You should want that.
Yeah, but like that's yeah.
I know. Yeah, but you should want. At this point, you're not a C class shooter. At this point, like if you want to win some majors, you have to shoot under pressure.
Yes. Yep. And I was able to do that, and I shot really aggressive stage plans, and I executed well on them. I shot to slide lock in a place that gave me a phenomenal time, and I typically wouldn't do that. So it was really a an eye opener for me on like what I'm capable of if I'm willing to focus and I'm willing to execute on the plan that I believe in. I'm capable of a lot more than I've previously given myself credit for. Um, because there's an M next to my name, and for
Yeah,
some people that means something. For some people it doesn't.
it does mean
Um,
something.
but it is certainly something I'm aware of that like people look at that and expect a certain level of shooting from me. And so to live up to that in that moment, I was happy about. But that's an interesting segue into our into our next point.
Well, okay, yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead, Tom. No, I'll
No,
let you
no,
go
no.
first.
That's well, no. Go to your segue. We'll do it. I'll talk about me as a new shooter, but exactly what you were just talking about. I was gonna talk about. Well, I'll just go into it. So your question is like new shooters, right? What do you do when they're on your squad? Is that kind of what you're talking about? Remind me of the
Um,
topic. I'm
yeah,
lost.
more or less like when do we help and guide new shooters? If you see a new shooter doing something that, from an efficiency perspective, is silly in a walkthrough, do we correct? Do we guide as people who have been in the sport for a few years, or do we sit back and let them learn lessons? Like unsolicited advice, I think is probably one of the most annoying things on planet Earth. And USPSA is rife with people who give unsolicited advice.
Yeah, I'm one of them.
And 50% of the time it's nonsense. Like the amount of times I've heard someone
I'd
come
say
up and critique a
75
stage.
of my advice is nonsense.
All right. Well, for Tom it's 75, so only listen to a quarter of what he's saying.
Oh my
But
God.
when I'm in a squad and I hear people, I think this would be a great way to exit this position. It's like, what are you talking about? This doesn't make any sense. Um, so a lot of unsolicited advice, it's generally a bad thing. So I did want to sort of pick your brain a little bit on like when is it useful, when is it not? What's your perspective on it?
Well, I can't speak too much about other people's experience, so I'll stick to mine. But this is how I am. So actually, somebody else that we shot today with Joe, I'll say Joe P, because I don't know, Larry gave us permission. Um,
Larry demanded it.
I demanded it. Larry Coons, 34, best shooter in Maryland. Anyway, so my first match was at Lower Providence. Didn't know anybody, obviously. Um, and Joe was in my squad. I didn't know who he was. He RO'd most of the day. He actually ended up DQing, and I was like, yeah, what happened? Oh, he drew and threw his gun. He didn't actually throw it, but it came out. And I thought he would just be DQ'd for that stage, and then I learned that you're DQ'd for the entire match, and I was like, oh, that sucks. He was doing really well, and it was on the last stage. But anyway, he like what you're talking about, like people looking up to you and be like, oh, that's Josh Morgan. Like the more I came around to matches, the more like I would see the same name. So I saw Joe. I saw, obviously you pay attention to Hempel because he's got a G next to his name. And I was always pumped. I was always pumped if they were in my squad. It didn't happen often. But if like high level shooters were in my squad, I was really like excited because it's like, all right, I'm gonna just watch them and I'm going to learn. Obviously I'm not gonna be able to execute like they execute. But I'm gonna just absorb everything. I actually like if I was the highest ranked class in the squad, I guess yeah, like kind of like what you were yesterday. I'm not saying you were the highest ranked, but like, and people were like looking at me, I'd be like, oh my God, what are you doing? Um, look away. But that's exciting. The other thing too is to your point, like I'm completely different than you. I'll take your unsolicited advice. It's then up to me to apply it or you know or take it under consideration. I'm more experienced now, so like if somebody, sometimes, there's people that tell me stuff and I'm like, I know but they're trying to be nice. But for example, like I think it depends how you carry yourself. By the end of that match, my whole point of my first match is that at the end of the match, probably like the last two stages, like I was asking like Joe a lot of questions. And by the end of the match, like he was, he, and then in future matches, like he and then other people are like, hey, like Quasi, he like, I didn't know who, but he was, he was an M class shooters, high level shooters. Like, and they just give you tips. And I think if you're like very, humble and you're not, I mean, it depends who you are, I guess, but I was like, cool. Like, I'll definitely do that. I don't take it as like, oh, you think you're better than me and you're not. And I'm going to do it my way because my way's better. It's like, no, like, let me try that. Most of the time, like, those people are trying to help you out. They're not trying to mess with you and you try different things. And you have to let people make their own mistakes too, so that they can learn from that. Just like, so I think, yeah, I think you, so I, where we shoot, and there's new shooters, I try to be really welcoming, and I try to give like, if it's a brand new person, the only tip I give is like, hey man, just come back. It's really fun. That's not really a tip, but if it's, around, be like, hey, you know, uh, just one thing per night. You know what I mean? Like one tip. I'm not going to be like, hey, you did this, 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 and this, and this. Um, but I don't know. I mean, if you're the kind of person who shows up and who doesn't want any of that, then I think it becomes very obvious. But I also think that you're going to end up being the person that gets left out. Um, that's fine, but for you, but that's not for me. Like I want to get better. So give me all your tips. I mean, I asked you guys a bunch of questions. I asked everybody a bunch of questions. Sometimes I feel bad because I feel like I'm annoying people. So sometimes I'm like, you gotta tell me, dude. Just tell me to stop asking questions.
Yeah, but I also think there's a relationship there too, right? Like we have a relationship because we've shot for almost a year now, over a year.
Yeah, but even in the first time we squatted together, like if like you could tell, like you've always been better than me. So I still come up and like ask questions. Like we had a whole conversation the first time we squatted together about how to shoot the classifier where you have like, it's a fixed time one, 7 seconds, two shots on four targets, reload, strong hand, same string, different string, you're a little closer, and then it's weak hand.
I'm not gonna lie to you, but
I
do
know you don't
not
remember
I
that, but
don't
I remember
remember
that.
that at
I know
all.
because you were a new shooter, and it was me, you, Joe, and I forget the other guy's name, but I remember that. See, I remember that because I was like, cool, like this is like at the end of the day, you guys did not do the plan, and I did, and I ended up with a 70%, which was my high score at the time. Super pumped.
I was
Uh,
probably what C class at the time too. I wouldn't have been.
no, you were shooting production, and you were B class, I
I would
believe.
have been B class. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, but like geez, I'm sorry I gave you advice in B class. That's antithetical to everything I stand
No, but
for.
like no, but I was lower, like, and I don't even know that that's like a criteria. Like, sometimes I give like I say, I say something to Dave now. I feel like a little bit more comfortable, but I feel like it's legit. And if he takes it or he doesn't take it, that's fine.
Do you ever, when you're at a match, do you ever feel like you're seeing a bunch of bad advice? Like, do you ever hear someone trying to advise a new shooter and you're just like, "Oh my God,
No,
what are you
you
talking
hear
about?"
more than I do, I guess. I mean, I hear it sometimes. I also double plug, so and most of the time I'm like focused on myself.
Maybe that needs to be my new thing because there's just
I
so many
double plug.
times. There's so many times, and it happened with Eastern Shore pretty bad on stage five, where it was we had shot this exact same stage at York the week before, and we had the data from the York match to look at. We get to Eastern Shore, and the people who had shot York knew the way to shoot this. It was a no-brainer. You
Yeah,
run
the
to the front
boxes.
box.
Yeah, yeah.
And we were still having 20-minute discussions. And there were people in C class who were like, "Nah, I can shoot faster than I can run." It's like, "Yeah, you can, but it's not more efficient." Like I can tell you that right now. We have the data to I don't know. It doesn't I think I can shoot faster. Like,
Yeah, but I've said that to you too, and gone with my stage plan, and then it wasn't the right stage plan.
yeah, but you're also not trying to drag other shooters into it.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Like if you went to all of the new shooters and you were like, "This is the stage plan, guys. This is there's no way you can run faster than you can shoot." And it's opposite to what everybody who is in contention for a stage win is doing. Like that's not
Yes. No,
beneficial.
for sure. I mean, if I went before I went to matches, I didn't know when I didn't know anybody, or if I went to a match where I don't know anybody, I look at the classifications and I try to remember the name, and I look if I can to see what they're doing for sure. Because if my stage plan is not the same, it's not correct. Um, And some people say, well, you can execute this. But if you're looking at GM stage plan and I'm an A class, it's not like we're close and like if I do it my way, well, I'll be competitive. No, it's probably like not the correct thing, you know? Um, yeah. I don't know. I know you get, I mean, I do hear like new people talking sometimes. And I heard it today. It wasn't in our squad, but when I was like, walking by another squad and you want to say, because you want to help, but then you're like, whatever. Like, it doesn't, yeah, it's like, you
That's
know,
a really bad idea. I'm excited to watch you execute it. Yeah, but also like that also irritates me personally too. Like the amount of people I've had critique my runs after I put like 40% on them is ridiculous. And it's not like good shooters either. Like it's people who it's like their second match and they're like, I don't think you should have shot it from there because you got too Charlie. And it's like,
well, maybe they're
what are
right.
you talking about? Like I got too Charlie because I was a silly goose. Like it wasn't a stage plan byproduct. Um, like that part irritates me. So if anybody's listening to this and you see me in a match, I fully expect you to now come critique me on my stage plans. And I don't mind helping new shooters. Like if somebody comes up to me and asks me for my thoughts on something, your mistake, bud. I will talk to you for the next 20 minutes about my stage plan and why I think it's the right way to do it or why I'm making the decisions I'm making.
I think both are good. Because if I waited for people higher level to me to come and give me tips, like I would have waited for a long time, I think. I think it's because I started first by like going up to people I didn't know and asking like, "Hey, why did you do this?" or "What do you think of that?" And they were nice enough, like you're saying, "Oh yeah, this is why." Oh, okay, cool. And then you get tips. But so I think you need both. You need the people who are willing to ask questions and the people who are willing to provide the best advice that they can. I might have given, I'm pretty sure I have, like not like poor advice, thinking I was giving correct advice, especially like I know things differently now than I did a year ago. So at the time, I was giving the best advice that I could, but now maybe looking back, I'd be like, nah, no, that wasn't right.
I also think the advice that people need to hear changes differently, like changes pretty drastically as they progress as shooters. Like the advice to like someone who is this is their first match is like, hey, don't shoot anybody. Um, and like,
I
how
mean,
do we
that's
not
true.
shoot anybody? But if it's somebody's like if they're in C class and they've decided like they're going to take this seriously and they're really going to compete, like they might need to hear something different. Like they might need to hear advice about dry fire or like stage planning.
Yeah,
And then when you get to A class, it might be like, hey, stop pulling the trigger when your eyes are not on the target. Like
yeah, that's right.
that that
Why are you
might be
doing
the
that?
advice that you need, you know? So
Why does it get under your skin so much what other people are doing though? You just gotta let it go, man. You gotta let it go.
well, there's two parts to it. Um, one, I think people people often take what they're initially presented with by someone who they perceive as an authority figure as like the correct perspective. And it's not so much the stage plan ideology as it is the perspective on shooting. And so if you're giving someone advice that has the potential, not saying it will, but it has the potential to shape how they view USPSA for the rest of their career, or at least until they get beaten so badly they have to change it. And like it's especially prevalent in shooting on the move, just as an anecdotal thing,
Oh,
where
that could be a
when
whole thing.
yeah, where when you watch upper level shooters, they are shooting on the move in very small increments for very specific purposes. A vast majority of their shooting is run hard, set up, shoot alphas quickly, leave fast. There is very little super aggressive entry on 10 to 15-yard targets. And at the match today, we saw many a B class, A class shooter trying to shoot into position on 12 to 15-yard targets and taking Charlie Delta or Alpha Delta. Um, because and I've heard it. I was a preacher of it for a while. The concept is if you see a
Truth
target,
comes out.
you can earn points. So it's like, why am I not earning points right now? And the answer is you're not earning points right now because you're not ready to be earning the points. But then you have
Yeah.
shooters trying to slow down to take these shots in the move, and it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't work out mathematically. It doesn't increase your hit factor. And this is just one particular example. But people who then hear that, if you're in C class and you think shooting on the move is the way to get out of C class, you're going to be in C class for a long time. But ask me how I know. Um, like that, it's just how the scoring works.
All right.
Which
All
is
right.
interesting
So
because you and I,
if you're at a match and you have a bunch of unranked people in your squad, go up to Josh and tell him his stage plan is shit.
yeah, I won't say it to your face, but I will talk about it on this podcast afterwards. I try to be as professional as I
All right.
possibly can be.
Are you gonna own up with what happened today at the match after it was done? There was we were parked next to each other. I was literally about to pull out and leave, and then I hear these wheels spinning, and this guy's car is stuck in the mud. I get out, and you just pull out and drive away, leaving this poor guy stuck in the mud.
Who was stuck in the mud? Were you stuck in the mud?
No, another guy.
Who was
And
stuck in
then,
the mud?
yeah, I mean, you wouldn't know. You're driving 55 in the freaking parking lot, dude. It's
Dude,
5 miles an hour.
I didn't even see someone stuck in the mud. That's
That's
crazy.
weird though, because I looked back and yelled at you, and you like just gave me the finger. It's really weird.
That didn't happen. Oh my gosh. Is that why you were walking over to that guy? I thought you were gonna.
Oh yeah, yeah, dude, because you were stuck in the
I
mud.
saw
There's
you
like,
in the rear view. I thought you saw someone that you were gonna like say bye to from the match.
no, you're stuck. Somebody pulled him out with a truck. Thank God. I don't have a
Oh
truck.
wow.
Yeah,
Wow. Well, I couldn't have done much with my Civic anyway, but I
could
apologize
have
for
been. You
leaving
could
you
have pushed
stranded.
him out of the mud, like a.
I could
Anyway,
have, but then I could have pulled my back, and how would I shoot South Carolina next weekend with a pulled back?
sociopath. All right.
So, speaking of personalities and how how we handle ourselves here, we talked about it briefly last week when you were not on,
Yes.
but something came up between Dave and Sean made a comment that
Okay.
Dave and I's answers were interesting because they matched our personalities and
I
how
listened to it. I don't remember that. When was that?
it was when we talked about shooting, the physicality of shooting, and Dave was very like brute force, do agility training, and I was
Oh, yeah.
very
Okay.
mental. How do I
Yes.
mentally engage myself here?
Okay.
Um, and so it brought up an interesting concept, and you are uniquely qualified to talk about this because of your profession.
Not really, but okay.
You're uniquely qualified compared to us Neanderthals with all your college education.
Okay.
But do you see personality impacting shooting? Do you see your personality impacting your shooting?
Well, my
What's
personality impacts my shooting for sure. I'm an overthinker and I'm very self-critical. Although I met somebody today who was like, "Fuck, makes me look fucking positive, man." This guy was cursed. Holy shit. He's fucking done his run. He was like, "That was fucking shit." And I'm running a tablet and he's like, "Let me see my time." And he looks at the time. He's like, "Fuck, that fucking sucks." Holy shit, man. You make me sound like I'm fucking Mr. Positive over here. Oh my God. Anyway, so I gotta look at myself, I guess. Um, yeah. Yeah, of course. I think if you can, if you have the kind of personality where you can really, like, it's meditation. If shooting is meditation. Um, between the beep and if you're finished and load, like if you can just everything goes away, like if you can just clear your mind and you're just focusing on just shooting, if you can do that in other things, um then I think you'll be better at shooting. um
so
I
shooting is meditation.
Yeah, shooting is meditation. So um uh, so this is kind of like, well, whatever. So meditation, a lot of people think meditation is like clearing your mind of everything, like having an empty mind. That's apparently, I learned that that's a more of a Western concept. But if you look at like the Eastern meditation, mindfulness meditation, it's actually just having your mind being clear of all but one thing, meaning you're in the moment. You're just doing one thing and everything else is Like you're mowing the lawn, you're just fucking mowing the lawn, and everything else is gone. Um, I don't know if that's a good example, but that's what it is. So if you're shooting, you're just shooting. You're not thinking about like just for me, for example, I'm shooting and I'm like, oh, and it was at the end of the match. I'm like, I did that thing again, where I'm not looking at the target, but I'm pressing the trigger, or I think I'm hitting it, but I'm really not because I already turned my head. Like, yeah, that's thinking about shooting, but it's not thinking about the task at hand in front of you. And so if you can switch that off pretty easily, or like, athletes say get in the zone, then I think if you can do that, I think you'll be better more quickly from the mental aspect of it. I mean, I'm like, what position am I going to hit? Yeah, I mean, I'm self-critical. If after a good stage that I have, I'm just like, and I do think that affects, how I shoot mentally, like my performance, because no
Now,
matter what, it's not good enough.
now when you're self-critical, and like we've trained together pretty extensively, and I'm trying to call you on it to make you aware of it. But
I already know. I know this before shooting.
do
I've known this
you
for years.
do you
So
ingrain that when you come off a
it is
stage,
ingrained.
but when you come off a stage, right, and you're like, darn, two deltas. Do you take that as like a learning experience to like train how to prevent that, or is it like I'm a sucky shooter, I shot two deltas?
No, I mean, I have matured in my old age, and I have learned to take that as lessons. Um, but yes, I am not a good shooter. Like that goes through my head. I have to fight that, and it's like, okay, well, you're like A class in USPSA. A lot of people are not doing that, and then I think, well, a lot of people don't know about USPSA. If everybody shot USPSA, there'd be a lot better, more shooters that are better than me. So that's where it goes. So I mean, yeah, you can call me on it all you want. I've been doing this, most of my life, so it is ingrained. Yeah.
That's interesting. Because like from the external perspective, I think you're probably a pretty good shooter as far as anybody who shoots USPSA. Like you understand the game technically, you understand shooting at a pretty high level. Like you're very fundamentally sound. Um, but it's also something that like I used to really struggle with over the past couple of years that I've sort of gotten more out of in the past 6 months or so. Where like if I perform poorly, it really doesn't matter. Um, or like redefining what success is. Like,
So
did
what do
I
you mean
hit
it
the
doesn't
speed?
matter if you perform poorly? I don't know
Like,
if I buy that.
like I opened the year at Eastern Shore shooting limited and had a 50% overall finish.
Yeah, but you're shooting limited.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. Like I was still an A class shooter, and I shot mathematically worse than you did today. And today was a dumpster fire by your own account. So 2 years ago, that would have been devastating for me. Like I would have seriously considered stopping shooting for a bit,
Oh, wow.
to shoot 50% at a match. Like especially where people know who I am. Like I did that in front of people. Like that's crazy. Um, so for me this year to be able to walk away from that and be like, it's okay. Like yeah, like I made mistakes. I got the score that I earned. Like I didn't execute on my training. And like to be able to show up on Thursday and like switch back to being a competitor and to train and to not have that in the back of my mind. Like that took a lot of conscious effort over the past couple of years. Because I used to be really self conscious about match results. If I had a bad match, it used to weigh on me for a long time.
That's why you gotta shoot more matches, so you don't have to think about it for that long. That's the worst part about what's going on right now with me, is I can't shoot as many matches, so I have to like think about this. Yeah, it's okay. All right, that's good to know. Well, okay, but I mean, all right. Yeah, I don't know. Personality affects. I mean, in terms of growth, personality will affect your shooting. Like we were talking about earlier. Like if you're not open minded, if you're not willing to take suggestions. I mean, if you walk into the to USPSA and you're a GM skill wise, and then you classify as a GM, like okay, fine, whatever. Um, but besides that, yeah, if you're not willing to like, you know, watch what other people are doing, take advice, put in the work. There's very little people that I think like have natural ability, hand-eye coordination, really good vision, being athletic, all that stuff that just get it right away. I mean that frustrates me, but like Dave just like, initial classification M, like fuck, great. Um, but besides that, like and that's not even fair because he'd been shooting for a few years and like put in work. Just it wasn't USPSA. So yeah, I think if you come in, this is actually that's kind of funny. The new shooter thing. There's people I've tried to get to matches and they're like, I'm not ready for a match. I have to get better and then go to a match. And I'm like, no, you just go to the match and then you'll get better by going to more matches or seeing where you're at. I mean, if I could go all the way back, my first match I was at like I think I finished in the bottom 5%. My first two matches. Like, whatever. Um yeah, I think you gotta be willing to take risks too. Not just like shooting wise, but also like yeah, like I could shoot really well and get mostly alphas, but my time would still be slow, but I'd still be in A class. I'm trying to get M, so I got to push my times. So if you're closed-minded, if the ego is too big, yeah, no, I don't think you're going to be good at shooting, but I don't think that you're going to be good at anything.
Wrong words
Uh,
from Tom. If you're not good at shooting, you're not good at
no,
anything.
is that what I said?
No, no,
Oh,
that's
okay.
not at all what he said.
For a second, I was like, shit, maybe I said that.
But it would have made a great soundbite.
Oh man, for those listening to this.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, like you and I have seen it, people show up to compete who, quite frankly, probably shouldn't be drawing from a holster. Um, like they don't know how their gun functions, they don't know how to reload. But then, like, there's an entire subset of the population who would benefit greatly from competing, who refuse to because their self-image tells them they're not good enough.
Yeah. I also think some people just show up to have fun and like don't really care.
Which is interesting. Like if
Those people frustrate you, I think.
oh,
The
for
pe-
sure, yeah, absolutely.
I'm just here to have fun. Oh, you
I
motherfucker.
I'll be totally honest. I do not understand that mentality. Like you're
You
gonna
don't have any fun doing this. This
no,
is
I have a ton of fun. I have a ton of fun.
It
I
doesn't sound
love
like it.
I love the people. Like I have made
Sounds like
lifelong
you love
friends
the
in this
people for
sport.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. This podcast is not going to
I
go well
hate
for
shooting
my public.
production. I hate the people who ask me questions. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, this is doing great for my PR. But um, no, like I genuinely enjoy the sport. I enjoy the concept of the hit factor scoring. I enjoy getting to meet new people. I mean, I've shot matches with people all over the country. I've met some phenomenal people through shooting. Shooting has opened a lot of doors for me. Like, I really do enjoy competing, but I am a competitor. If you show up to a match and you're trying to say that you don't care about the results, I find that very hard to believe because if your interest was just in shooting, there are plenty of places you can go shoot. If
Your
your
interest is in
interest,
shooting competitively.
okay,
I think
but then
people
don't
care about the
don't
results.
lie
They
to
want to see.
yourself.
They want to see. They want to see how they do. But you're trying to. You have a goal, and their goals, like they're just whatever. Who cares?
And it's fine. I'm not saying we should
It
ban
sounds
these
like it's
people
not
from
fine,
matches,
Josh.
but it
What
does
kind of
irk
personality
me.
is going on over there?
It does irk me when
Yeah.
people try to convince other people around them that they just shoot for fun. It's like, okay. If you shot poorly, just say you shot poorly, but don't try and play it off as like,
All right. Well,
I
you know
don't
some
care.
things
It's
then.
just a local.
All right. All right. I feel like you have some personal history in the back here that we're
I
scratching the surface of. But all
no,
right.
no personal history. It's just an annoying thing to hear from a fellow competitor. Like you're here to compete. You're
No,
here
you
to
should be
put
happy to be like, I'm fucking beating you easily. I'm not even gonna worry about you.
you know what? Honestly, that has played less of a factor for me
I know.
recently. Like it used to. I used to be like,
One
Every
less.
production shooter I see, I'm coming for you.
Which one?
Everybody I see with iron sights and no magwell, I'm like, your ass is mine.
Nice.
And I just don't feel that way anymore. Um, maybe it's a confidence thing. Maybe it's a
Well, maybe you're not really shooting against high level production shooters too. Let's be honest.
well, that's offensive to all the production shooters I shoot against. But maybe
Well,
we
I
need
didn't
more
say
production
every
shooters.
match. I said, just recently,
We need more production shooters in this world, Tom.
I guess.
But yeah, I think personality plays a role for sure. Like I'm a very risk avoidant person in my personal life, and so in shooting I have to like intentionally work on taking acceptable risks. And so I have
See,
to
though, it's
train
kind of
that.
funny the way you say that. Acceptable risk. Like you're still risk avoidant when
Yes,
taking
I
risks.
yes, I am. Um,
That's fine.
like I am risk avoidant. And I have to sort of train some of that out of myself because you absolutely cannot be winning matches without risk. With some degree of risk somewhere in the match. Like you have to. If you're sitting on your sights shooting slow alphas on every target, you are going to get steamrolled. And so figuring out, particularly in training, less so in matches, but in training, how much risk you can get away with, I think has been more beneficial to me over these past year or so, where I'm at least consciously aware of it and working on training it out of me.
All right. Yeah, I mean, doesn't look like that to me, like watching the shooting, but that's all in the head. Like you don't know. So, but I have seen you take more risks. Like you're going way faster, you're moving way faster, and yeah, you're not getting all alpha. I mean, the goal is to get all alpha, obviously, but um, yeah, there was a definitely. I think the 6 months, yeah, because we're talking about March. Yeah, 6 months ago, like yeah, there was something going on, and then you made a switch. So, and that's when you got M class too. So, but yeah, all right, sounds good.
Any closing thoughts on personality and shooting, Tom?
No, no. If you are scared of shooting a match, just shoot it. Most people are friendly, and it's really fun. Actually, the one thing I tell new shooters all the time is like, careful, man, because it's addicting. So,
Spend your life savings on this game.
exactly.
All right, guys. Well, this has been a production of Double Tap Dynamics. The team is sponsored by Lock Grips and Brass Monkey Bullets. I, Josh Morgan, am personally sponsored by Goliath Defense for holsters and Warhorse Ordnance for all of my belts and soft goods. We appreciate you guys sticking with us to the end here. If you
There's
enjoyed,
also a code for chocolates, isn't there?
no, there's not.
No more?
I don't think so.
Oh,
If there is,
I
I don't have it.
no, I used it like a month ago.
Ooh, what's the chocolates code, Tom?
Double tap DT. So just double tap DT.
There you go. For
Yeah.
all of your non-chalk needs, your
Dude, that
chalk-like substance
it
needs.
beats you're rubbing on your pants before you take your gun out.
Hey,
Definitely.
it
I
works
mean,
for me.
you could use some chocolates. You could just put it on your pants.
It's
You
part
can
of
still rub
my
your pants if you like doing it.
it's part of my meditation process, Tom. You
Okay.
gotta let me get in the zone here.
Yeah, get in the zone. Rub your
All
pants.
right, guys. If you see us at a match, please come and talk to us. If you enjoy the show, please let us know. You can email me at joshmorganshooting@gmail.com. I'm happy to hear from you guys. And we got stopped at the Eastern Shore match, and a couple of people said they listened to the show and they enjoyed it. So if you guys are listening this far into the show, we really appreciate it. Thank you guys for being here, and we're gonna hammer down and holster, and we'll see you on the next one.